Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Are you looking for a designer to help you with your next product or startup? When I'm not working on the show, I'm busy working as an award-winning chief design officer and have been doing software design for startups and other companies for over 20 years. I'm also a published author and recently sold a startup to a multi-billion-dollar company. For more information, visit kevinhorek.com. That is KEVINHOREK.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Matthew Celia. He's a co-founder and creative director at Lightsail VR. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing at Lightsail VR is actually really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. So, I was actually born in Pasadena.
Cool.
So I have like strong ties here to California, but I grew up on the East Coast.
Okay,
because we moved back there when I was really, really little. And my dad, was trying to make it in theater as an actor in New York City. And I just, I remember from an early age, like when I was 6, I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be an actor. We would trek into the city and we go on auditions. And, throughout my whole time growing up, I very much have always really been into the arts and into theater and into telling stories in that kind of space and in that way. And when it came time to go to college, most people thought I'd head back to New York and go to NYU. And I was like, no, I want to make movies. So I came out to California and I went to Chapman University because it was so hands-on and I loved that. I'm a real get in and get to wrong quick kind of person.
Got you.
I love just experimenting and trying it out and doing the physical work myself. I remember the first time I cut actual film with a razor blade and tape. And it was the most fun I've ever had. It was so just amazingly fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
So Chapman has just one of the most incredible film programs for undergrad because they give you a camera on day one and they're like, go make stuff.
That's awesome.
That's where I met my business partner, Robert Watts. Because we were both at Chapman and we kind of hung out. I remember helping him film his first Indiana Jones spin-off, freshman year. It was super fun. But after I graduated and I got into the industry, for me, I actually kind of felt a little lost creatively because I think that I was having a difficult time marrying where the industry was with filmmaking with where my heart was that really was stemmed from this love of theater, right? And this sense of place that you get with working with theater actors and creating a world under imaginary circumstances, right?
Sure.
And this kind of world building was something that was really deep in my core. It wasn't until, so I bounced around a lot. I did a bunch of odd jobs and I worked, as a director and as a producer and just doing anything I could, right, to pay the bills. I worked in a commercial production company for a while. But as an artist and as a creative person, I felt lost until Robert and I reconnected. And he said, this is in 2015, by the way. He said, I think virtual reality is going to be a big, big, cool thing. And he lent me his cardboard headset, which is cheap plastic thing you got off Amazon for $20 and you put your phone in and the 3D looked terrible and the resolution was awful. But I remember watching some of the first stuff that Chris Milk was doing with at that time his company was called Verse, and being just entranced because I saw the passion that I had for theater and the creation of a world coming to filmmaking, which I also had a huge passion for. And for the first time, I, as an artist, was I have something to say. And I have a vision for what I think the content and the future of entertainment in virtual reality should be. And so, you know, I went to VRLA and I watched a bunch of stuff and I talked to a whole bunch of people. And for me, I wasn't seeing kind of the storytelling and like the character development and like that theatrical kind of input in the industry yet.
Sure.
And that's where Rob and I called him up. I remember so vividly. I was like, dude, let's get a camera. I'll take out a loan on some credit cards and we will just like figure this out. So that's what we did. We got a camera. We started messing around, posting up to Facebook, and pretty soon people started calling us just like out of the blue, being like, "Hey, you guys do VR? Hey, you guys do VR?"
That's awesome.
And that was the birth of Light Sail and me as a creative director.
No, that's awesome, man. No, yeah, that's actually quite interesting because I was obviously kind of checking out some of the video and stuff that you guys have done and the VR projects that you've done. And they're actually really, really like, you're right. They're like kind of like a little movie, right? And with kind of like that music video you guys did recently where you're moving in kind of like different stage props, like pulls in that theater side, which is actually really like makes total sense just on the story you kind of just told us. So obviously you guys have been in VR for a number of years now. How has your company kind of Light Sail kind of evolved over the last few years? And what did you guys kind of start off doing and what are you doing now? Is it similar? Is it different? Is it a bit of both? Or walk us through kind of that journey.
Yeah, you know, the industry of virtual reality has really changed and grown and evolved. And it means a lot of different things. And I think what a lot of people don't understand right away is that virtual reality is just a delivery vehicle, right? You can't really say like, this is VR, this is not VR. It's like if you put a headset on your face, you're in VR. It doesn't matter if you're watching Netflix and you're watching a 2D cinema, you're still in VR, you know, because it really is just, it's like television or the cinema. It's a delivery vehicle. Where I think things get really interesting and where there's a lot of like, you know, exploration is, well, what kind of content can we create in VR that is unique to this space and takes everything that you can't do in any other medium and brings it to life, right?
Yeah.
So when we first started, we started with 360 video.
Okay.
And a lot of this video was consumed on cell phones or on a web browser. And I don't think that is VR. However, when you put it on your face in a headset, it is transportive, you know?
Yeah.
You turn your head and that little basic interactivity, which people sometimes I think discount that as being interactivity, but it is because you as an audience, you're choosing where to look. And as a director, I have to try to get you to look where I want you to look through the use of a lot of like psychology and gentle guidance, and clever ways that I block and put together the scene, just in the same way that theater productions are doing that right now, especially immersive theater productions, you know, is they are playing with the human mind and the human emotion to create a reality under these imaginary circumstances. And that's a phrase I use a lot because it comes from the acting training my dad imparted into me from like the Stanislavski and the method, right? You know, it's all about creating this world. So, you know, we started with 360 video, and that was really good during the boom years because everybody wanted to do it. Every ad agency wanted to do it. Every movie studio wanted to do it. They wanted like the 360 video this, 360 video that. And there was a bunch of hype and a bunch of terrible projects that were greenlit and done with bad cameras, with bad direction, like things that didn't answer that question. Why is this in VR? Why are we doing this in 360? What is the point? Right?
Yeah, fair. I think that's part of the problem, right? Is sometimes a medium gets a bad rap because people put everything in that medium and you're like, well, if it doesn't make sense in that medium, why would you put it there just because that medium's popular right now, right? Like it almost hinders. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, if it's not made better, then don't do it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stories that we've pitched on that I think, you know, would have been better in 2D. And I always try to add something extra to that I'm like, well, what's our point of view? What's our perspective? Why is this going to hit you harder because we are watching it in a headset than if we were watching it just like, you know, on a cell phone,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's really, really important. I think to that effect is kind of what we started to experiment around was like intersecting live action, which is something, you know, Robert and I coming from Hollywood know how to do really well, with game engine interactivity. And a few years back, we released this project called Speak of the Devil, which is like, I would still consider it like a beta. It's like a real testing ground for us, where we were trying to build a choose your own adventure style narrative that felt authentic to the VR space. And that was a big project for us because I think it started to get people's attention in new and different ways, because up until that point, most people thought of a choose your own adventure as your traditional branching narrative, right? It's a tree.
Right.
You have point A, point B, and then it's a linear forward experience. And the way we built Speak the Devil was an open world exploration concept. So we just drop you into a forest and you can go anywhere you want. And you can go forward and go backwards. You can return to the same scene. You can watch that scene from a different angle, you know, like, and the logic engine we created for that knows where you are, knows what you've seen, knows who you've met, where you are in the story arc, right?
Interesting.
To try to give you, you know, without filming a million different endings, right? You can have still a million different playthroughs.
Right. Interesting.
And I think that was super interesting. And that was something that really felt authentic to me creatively, because it felt like immersive theater, but in virtual reality, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And part of me also thinks, almost just going back to kind of that music video concept, like I'm surprised more and more content or shows or movies even aren't filmed like that, right? Because nothing is cooler to me than kind of actually being inside the show or the concert or the movie than, you know, watching it kind of on your TV. And I know all the kind of stereotype stuff, I think, with VR headsets. Like, you start seeing people wearing on planes now. They're so much more common and they're so much more affordable now that I think a lot of content could be, you know, moved into VR. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts around that?
I completely agree with that. I think, you know, what ended up happening at the tail end of in 2018, right, is like a lot of the companies that were financed with venture capitalist money kind of went belly up because they really weren't able to make a profit in like 2 years, which is insane, right? You're inventing a brand new medium, right, and a brand new way of storytelling to create a whole brand new audience, and you expect to do that in like 2 years? Like, it took 30 years for people to start going to the cinema, you know?
Yeah, interesting.
So it was a bit premature for people, I think, to pull out a lot of their investment. But what that left was this kind of like, 360 video's dead. No one's doing it. It's not cool. And I think that hype talk is premature, because I think it is still cool. I still think that there's something that can't yet be replicated with live action and live video in a game engine. But I also think that we're now starting to see like some of the interactivity that we were playing around with start to come to light, you know, with unique and different experiences to take advantage of the fact that, you know, in VR, like, I know where you're looking, right?
Yeah.
So I can use some of that data to change things and load things dynamically. And I have so much more data I can collect to drive a narrative experience. And I think that's really very exciting work that's going on. So I think that there is, you know, going to be a renaissance of 360 video for headset viewers, because headsets, as you said, are getting more popular and way more affordable. And, you know, after a couple rounds of Beat Saber, you may want to sit down and you just may want to watch something. Like, you just may want to like go on a Nat Geo experience and like see the world from space, you know? And that's best done, I think, in live action.
No, I 100% agree. The other thing that I want your thoughts on that I find really useful is my kids really like, I guess like the learning experiences where you're like swimming around with like a virtual dolphin or under the ocean or something like that. I found that stuff to kind of, I think that's another area that VR could do really well, or people could create more content around. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts around it for being kind of more educational as well?
Oh, I think it's a huge market for that. And like that's what I kind of was saying at the top of VR is just a medium, right?
Right. Okay.
Like what we can do in it is so vast.
Sure.
Most of our work, you know, we still do a lot of the commercial entertainment stuff, but we've done a lot of training recently.
Right.
You know, for companies who can clearly see the ROI, and part of that is education, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think would put like young kids into VR because I don't think that the optics and the 3D is necessarily like really good for their eyes. I know me personally, like I dream in frame lag sometimes because I spent too much time in a VR headset with an underpowered computer, you know, that's just dropping frames. But like, there's no better way to learn something than by doing it and seeing it. And if that's going to connect people, I think it's great. Like, let me give you an example. There's a company in Florida we collaborated on a project with, and you know, they film and do a bunch of stuff with the coral reefs in Florida, you know, and they're trying to educate people on what's happening with the coral reefs there, how global climate change is a big issue for this ecosystem. Now, there's a large section of people in the middle of the country who've probably never seen an ocean before.
Yeah.
You know, how do you get those people to empathize and understand and learn and care if they've never seen it? And that's the power of virtual reality is, well, now we can take you there and you have, you know, the choice to look around, or in the case of, you know, like the dolphin piece that you mentioned, you can interact with it, you know?
Yeah.
You can swim with it. You can literally go places, and it really tricks your mind. It really does in just an incredible way.
No,
so I think that is absolutely exciting.
No, I 100% agree with you. Do you guys do anything in the augmented reality space?
You know, we're dabbling in the augmented reality space just because it's hot, and like everyone, like we get like probably a phone call every couple of weeks, like, you guys do AR, right? And you know, we can, in the same way that, like, because it's a spatial medium of storytelling, it falls under that XR umbrella.
Yeah.
Like, we feel like we're really well suited for that because we really understand at Lightsail what good spatial storytelling is, how to get your audience really engaged emotionally by building a world. With AR, you're building less of the world, I think, and you're building more characters, and you're putting those characters in your real world. Yeah. Which is a little tougher for me entertainment-wise because I'm more of an escapism fan. You know, I'm into like Back to the Future and like those kind of films. You know, like I like to go on adventures. But I see a real strong value in AR for training and for information. But I also think that technologically, it's farther away, I think, than most people realize. Like,
what do you mean by that, and why do you say that?
Well, most people refer to AR now as phone-based AR, which to me isn't really AR. It's a magic window, the same way as 360 video isn't really VR, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's exhausting to hold your phone up the whole time. Not to mention, like, I always feel like I'm going to drop my phone, as I do quite often.
Well, I think you try it like a handful of times or less, and then you never try it again in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the headsets themselves, like Magic Leap and HoloLens, are really getting good, but their field of view is still very small, and it's not like the marketing that they make it play. So
yeah, interesting. I agree with you.
I'm very excited. Yeah.
No, okay. No, very cool. So for people that maybe haven't tried VR, and what do you kind of tell them, or is there a good way that they could easily try it with maybe outspending a lot of money, or is there good places to go to actually get a decent VR experience these days?
I think the big buzzword in the industry is LBE, for location-based entertainment. I think that this is like where a lot of people are seeing some revenue, which is great, right? Because you need revenue in order to grow an industry. But, it is still on the pricier side. Like, I think Dreamscape Immersive in LA is like $20, and it's like a 15-minute experience. And I think like The Void is like $35, and that's like it's like a 20-minute experience,
Sure.
Both of those are great examples of really high-end virtual reality.
Okay.
It's like the cinema of virtual reality, because they have, 4D tracking and haptics and all these things that you can't really build at home, right?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think that was one of the reasons that like IMAX VR didn't do very well, is like what they were playing in their theater was everything I already had on my home VR system. And if I could afford to spend $1 a minute, which is what the pricing really comes down to, then I probably can afford an Oculus Rift or a Vive, and just do it at home whenever I want, as often as I want. My suggestion for people who are interested in VR is to go to like a real LBE place, like The Void or Dreamscape Immersive, to get the best experience.
Okay.
And then look for friends who have it, and try it. And try, like, I think what sometimes people don't understand is your VR headset is very unique to you. And that is a struggle with like these location-based places where they kind of have to go for the lowest common denominator, right? And they have to like build it kind of for everybody.
Okay.
Like, you don't really get in there, and you can't like really fit it very well and adjust your focal length, because all of our eyes are different widths apart. All of our heads are different sizes. We all have, some of us wear glasses, some of us don't. When you can get a VR headset and invest in one yourself, like, you can really make it yours. And so if you even think that you want to just try it, try looking at like an Oculus Go. I think they were $150 on Amazon Prime Day.
Right.
That is really affordable. And that gives you, a 3DOF, not full room scale VR, but it's definitely still transformative and can transport you there. My headset of choice is obviously the Oculus Quest. I think that is, I think it's going to sell real well, because it is just an unbelievable product. It's like full wireless VR.
That's cool.
Easy to set up and use, and looks great. So I would just try it. I would advise people to get into it and see what's cool. And obviously, if you're a gamer, I think it's going to be more exciting right now. But there's a lot of immersive, exploratory, cinematic, and social content, and that's actually kind of cool, because I'm part of this XR Social Club, which is a Facebook group, and we meet up every Wednesday night in Rec Room or in other social platforms, and we just chat. We just chat. I made ice cream cones for everybody, in VR, and we just all pretending to eat ice cream cones and sitting around this like pretend virtual campfire and just talking about our days, and then we can all jump into like a game of paintball or a game of like capture the flag. And so, like, social VR is also something I think that is really exciting for people to get into.
Okay, so just to be clear, the social VR, the group you were talking about, like, you guys were each in your own homes or houses, right? And like spread out across the globe. Like, you didn't physically meet anywhere. I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we do it like 8:30 p.m. every Wednesday. I do it from my living room. I get my kids to bed, and then pop on the headset. And some of us are in New York, some of us, are in Dallas. A lot of us here, are here in LA, but we all like to meet together via the power of the web. It's really like the metaverse. Like, it's like the first beginnings of Ready Player One.
Yeah, no, that's cool, because the thing that I love about the internet is, well, right now you and I are in two different countries, but it doesn't really matter, right? And as we get more and more of these experiences and a headset or whatever it ends up being down the line, there'll probably be many of these things. The fact that you basically can hang out without physically hanging out is really cool, with people kind of all over the world, right? And then, like you said, you can do these different things together. You can start playing games. You can start just having a conversation and kind of everything in between.
Yep. Like we could create a talk show format in like Rec Room, like a private Rec Room, and then you can videotape it, and you can create a virtual reality thing where we could be sitting in the same virtual room, and then what's nice is you can kind of see my facial expressions,
Right.
you know, and the way I move my head and my hands when I talk, because I'm a very like active talker with my hands.
Right.
I could then, like, you know, we're talking about that ice cream I made. I could just, well, let me show you how I did that. And I could just make it and I give you, you know, this is really early days, but we're seeing kind of like a new social meeting space form. And I think for me, that's really exciting.
For sure. No, that's very cool. So I want to get back into Light Sail a little bit more. I know you kind of talked about it like throughout the show a little bit, but do you maybe want to give us some other examples of types of projects that you've built in the past, just to give people a really good idea of the stuff that's possible in VR and the stuff that you guys have done?
Yeah, absolutely. So our biggest hit, I think, is probably Paranormal Activity. It was actually the first big thing we did. It had like 10 million views on like YouTube, and you know, it was one of the first horror projects that had like real people in it, so you could see them being scared, which would make you scared, you know. But one of the things that we've really tried to do is we've also tried to use VR for good, and we've tried to, you know, use VR to build empathy, and show people a world that's maybe outside themselves. And one of the pieces I'm most proud of is a piece we did with Google called Immerse, and it's a study about racial identity. And we follow two people as they talk about their racial identity journey.
Interesting.
And we kind of step into their lives and their shoes, and we start to feel a little bit like we know them. And that was really important for me, is because I think, especially today, where I feel like the media and our 24-hour news cycle, and, you know, not to get too political, but I feel like a lot of people talk past each other, you know, and I just really wish we could all talk more with each other. And sometimes I think if we can understand where someone else is coming from, it makes it a little easier, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, so I think virtual reality has a real power to do that. And we've done that piece about racial identity. We did another piece for a nonprofit in the Bay Area, trying to showcase how prison inmates, you know, are trying to be reformed through a different process of like getting to know their victims rather than keeping it very separate.
Interesting.
So finding that healing by having these like victim offender dialogues. And we made an interactive video experience where you can choose, you know, how you interact with the prison inmate, and depending on whether or not you are more empathetic in your questions or less empathetic, you get different responses, you know, and it tracks like whether or not he was able to change your mind during the course of the experience, which is pretty exciting.
No, interesting. That's actually really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. No, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to just say, I think that's the stuff that people don't hear about as much, right? When they think VR, they just think that like, oh, I'm just in this virtual world. I walk around and that was cool, but like, I'll never go back to it, right? But like VR to me, and obviously to you, is so much more than that. And again, going back to kind of your earliest point, was like, it's just a medium, right? And it's a way to get content out there. And I think we're at kind of the beginning of where this whole medium can go, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, nothing annoys me. My biggest pet peeve in VR is when people are like, oh, that's not VR. It's like, I feel like it's way too early to put labels on stuff. Especially because, like, you know, to me, you know, VR is anything you watch in a headset. You know, it's just a delivery mechanism, right? Like, so, you know, everything can be VR. Now, whether it's good, that's a totally different conversation. But just we're defining, you know, the medium right now. We're defining what makes it unique and special. And projects like the one we did with the prison inmate are really unique and special because they can only exist in virtual reality, because they combine that live action video with that user input to custom tailor an experience for you that feels like you're sitting in the room with him having a conversation. And that's transportive, you know, that's bringing you in there. So
yeah, and I think too, when you can give somebody an experience that, unless they actually have physically experience that experience in the real world, they probably will never get to experience that, right? Like, if you've never been to prison, it's really hard to understand what it's like, right? And from probably an inmate side of things, right? But if you can experience that in VR, sure, it's maybe not exactly like going to prison, but like you have a deeper understanding of where that person's coming from, good, bad, or other, right? And I think just getting people to think and having the ability to get people to think about different situations and scenarios that don't normally happen to them in their day-to-day life is actually a really, really interesting thing that VR kind of solves or can solve.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think most people wake up in the morning and they're like, I'm going to be a jerk today. You know, I think most people don't want to be jerks. They want to, you know, they have values that are important to them, and sometimes they need to communicate those values, right? But if we could, you know, show people where those intentions are coming from, then maybe we can actually make some progress as a human race here, you know?
No, I 100% agree with you. The other thing that I found interesting that you guys have done is your like closet tours of people's like closets at their house, right? And sure, they're usually like celebrities or somebody that's well known, like nobody would care about my closet, for example. But I think just being able to showcase certain kind of personal aspects of your life and post it online. Obviously, you could take a photo of your closet and whatnot, but kind of how you guys did it where she's kind of walking people through, and obviously I can move around her closet, is kind of a cool interactive experience that I think if you're passionate about that celebrity or that person or whatever, and they can kind of walk you through something like that, it's a cool experience for fans, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, you know, so that was part of the work we've been doing with Condé Nast, and we did a bunch of work with Refinery 29, and they wanted to play around in the VR 180 space, which is like half the sphere,
right?
You know, and it's really designed for the YouTube audience.
Right.
And I think that the YouTube audience, they're watching mainly on their phones, not necessarily in a headset, but, you know, YouTube fans are really powerful fans, and they really love the content. They love their shows. And I think fandom is just something that's become very much a part of our society right now. And I think it's very cool to take like Ashley Tisdale, for example, who has a great fan following. And it's a chance for her to connect with her fans in a more personal way, right? Totally. Because, you know, the depth of the 3D makes you feel like you're more there. You can actually look around her closet, you know, and it's a great use case for bringing someone a little closer to people. And I think VR 180, I always like to say, is the medium of people, whereas VR 360 is more like the medium of a location. Because I think 180, it's all about who you're with, because you can't look around 360 degrees because behind you is just black, right? But, you know, if I'm, you know, standing in front of Ashley Tisdale, I'm probably not facing away from her, right? So, you know, I'm probably having a conversation with her and interested in what she wants to say. And that's kind of what we've tried to do with those VR 180 series, you know, trying to see if this can be like a viable medium for digital content makers in order to increase engagement with their fans. And I think we've had varying levels of success there. But I do think that the people who do like it really like it.
No, that's fair. The other thing that I think a lot of people forget about sometimes is, obviously this is a very bad generalization, but there's a lot of like younger people that really find YouTube celebrities like or idolize YouTube celebrities, for example, more than just like a traditional Hollywood actor or actress, right? And I'm not saying one's better than the other. I don't really want to have that debate, but I think giving people that are kind of just say like internet-based celebrities, again, not saying one's better than the other. It's just they're trying to find unique and new ways to engage with their audience online, right? Where obviously somebody that's like a big movie star like Will Smith, for example, like most people know who he is, and there's a million other people like that people know of, but like some generations don't know who he is, right? Like so it's kind of an interesting place, and based on kind of who you are as a person, if you're a celebrity or not, trying to figure out new ways to engage in the mediums that people are viewing you and your content. Do you know what I'm trying to get at there?
No, absolutely. And you know what? Like, we've had conversations with channels and folks at YouTube, and, they were like, what really would push this needle forward for us would be a YouTube star, not like, Johnny Depp or anybody,
Right.
like some of the stuff that we've done that we thought would be huge was actually not as well received as some of the stuff we've done with, more influencer style talent. And that was, coming from the film world, that was a little shocking to me. But, when I think about it, it actually makes complete sense. Like, most, and I think it's the state of media today, right? Most younger people, they come home from school, right, and they turn on YouTube, or to them, a YouTube video is the same as an Instagram post, is the same as a blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
It's all just the same to them. But one is very cheap to get, and one is like, $14 at the Megaplex. I think that's going to be a situation, coming up pretty soon. So,
yeah,
I mean, the time is changing.
No, it's interesting, right? Just to see kind of how people consume content. And it's always funny to me. I'm 36, just so you have some context. Like, if I go to a concert where sometimes there's like the age ranges all over the map, and there's like a young person, I remember a while ago, sitting in front of me, they had to be at least 10, 15 plus years younger than me, like maybe just 18. And the legal drinking age in Canada, at least where I live, is 18, just so like they can go to the bar and see a concert. And I've never seen a person use a phone so fast to consume content. It was just like, they just knew where to push on the screen based on like what app and social media apps. And they were watching videos and sending posts and texting. And it's like, just watching them consume and interact with content so fast, where like I've been in technology my whole life and I can't interact with anything that quickly, right? And it's just interesting to watch somebody use the same technology that you use every day and how they use it so similar and so different from you at the same time. So I think just getting people to think about the different age ranges, or how popular or how understanding you are of technology or aren't of technology, right? And just trying to view technology from different kind of lenses and different people actually can make your experiences that you're creating, no matter the medium, a lot better, right?
Yeah, and I think you've just touched on something very, very important here. It's like, I'm 35, right? So I feel you, and I'm majorly into technology. Like, I'm a techno whiz kid here and trying to do crazy stuff. But like, my cousin who's like 15 is like, she's editing videos every day because she's like Snapchatting, and she's creating her stories and she's doing all this stuff. What I think is going to be the real tipping point for virtual reality is a lot of the training work we're doing. And a lot of the employees who will be taking an Oculus or a HTC headset home for work purposes, doing their required training and whatever it is, and then it sits there. Right. And then their sons or daughters are going to pick it up just the way I picked up a computer when my dad brought it home when I was a kid.
Yeah.
They're going to pick it up and go, well, what else can I do with this thing? Besides play games. Oh, maybe I can draw or sculpt or program, or how can I hack this, and how can I innovate on it? And I think, that's why I'm not concerned at all about like VR, in the marketplace, because I know it's getting out there with all this training stuff. Walmart, 17,000 headsets.
Wow.
We just did something where the company purchased 800 headsets, and every employee is taking that headset home. Okay. And those kids are going to get into it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be their medium. They're going to be the ones in social VR and drawing and making content and exploring in this space. And I think the best is definitely yet to come, because they're going to add a major voice to it.
No, I think that's actually really good advice. The other thing that I kind of want your thoughts on is actually inspiring people to get into some of this stuff, because let's be honest, like VR, you could argue has been around for a number of years, maybe even a couple of decades if you go back, but the current version or iteration of VR that we're in is really only, you could maybe argue 5 years old, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. But if you haven't started in VR and you really want to start in VR, you could probably start actually doing some pretty cool stuff within weeks, months, or maybe a year. Like, it doesn't really take you that long to get into some of this new stuff anymore. And it's not as daunting as I think some people make it out to be. There's a ton of free content online on YouTube that you can learn how to build your own VR experiences, right? Like, do you agree, or like, what do you say to people that are looking to get into the space?
I'll tell you, like, I was trained in film and I've always been a technical kind of person with computers, but
Sure.
everything I've learned how to do in VR, I've learned from YouTube.
Interesting.
Like, there is a wealth of knowledge out there from very smart and generous folks. And if you're willing to put in the time to experiment yourself and check it out and try and fail,
Yeah.
you can learn to just do just about anything. You know, like, I've learned how to do stereoscopic video and visual effects. And I've taught myself Unity over the last 2 years, which unlocks in a completely total rabbit hole of possibilities. Because once you start going into a game engine, you can literally do anything you want. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And
well,
and I think that,
sorry to cut you off. Just I wanted on the Unity side of things, like, entire video games are built in Unity. Like, Nintendo's stuff that's built for like iOS and Android is built in Unity. Like that Mario, the name escapes me, Super Mario World or whatever it was called a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And like, I think Mario Kart is coming out right away is built in Unity, and like games make it to the Xbox and PlayStation and like that are built in Unity. So you can basically build anything in Unity now and across a bunch of mediums, including VR. Sorry, I just wanted to caveat that.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's like hundreds of free hours of Unity training online as well, right?
It's the most powerful thing. And if I were to tell anybody who's younger who wants to be a creative person what the most valuable skill is, I would say learn a game engine.
Interesting.
Because everything's going that way. Feature films are being prevised and sometimes finished in a game engine, you know? So you can use for narrative linear content. VR applications, whether it's a game or whether it's some of the interactive cinema that we've been working on, it's all done in a game engine. It is a way that people can create without limitation. And I think that is like the most empowering thing that's happened right now. I'm calling it the game engine revolution right now because it is so accessible. And these game engines, by the way, Unity and Unreal, are 100% free to use.
That's actually
once
a really
you start
good
making
point.
money, they take a cut, but they are 100% free. They're not hobbled. They're not like, shareware or whatever. Like, they don't have any limitations at all. Everything is there for you to play around with. And that is super exciting. And I think that's part of the maker VR revolution here is this generation of VR enthusiasts have been able to push the boundaries because these tools are finally so accessible.
Yeah, I was going to add that. I'm glad you added that because that's the thing. Like when you're starting out or you've been doing something for decades, you're using the exact same tools, right? Where not that long ago, you had to basically get really expensive software on really expensive hardware. And nowadays, you need a decent computer to run some of this stuff, but like you don't need to spend $10,000. You probably don't even need to spend a couple grand. You can probably get away with, like a decent computer, right? If you're gaming
I think there's
already,
a VR capable computer is like $600 or $700 for a laptop.
There you go. Right. And
Like,
if
cheap.
you're gaming and you're looking to build games, you probably have a good gaming machine already. So
yeah, exactly. Like you probably have something. I mean, that's everything in our office are just gaming computers.
Interesting.
No,
very cool. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show, but do you have any other thoughts or things that we didn't touch on that you would like to cover, or any kind of other advice to give people listening?
we kind of talked real briefly earlier about how I'm like the world's biggest VR evangelist.
All right.
And I really am. Like, I really think it's a powerful medium, and I really think that the people who are in it are passionate about it, and that's what draws me to it. You know,
Sure.
where it's going, you know, I've seen a lot of VR experiences that I don't like, and I've seen a lot of things that I think aren't very good. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think people are exploring and playing and working it out. But, you know, for Light Sail, our whole mission here is about that human experience, and that taking our audiences on a journey with us, right?
Sure.
And I think more companies and I think more people want that, and I'm excited because it allows us to really play in this space. So, you know, for us, I think the future is fairly bright, and I think VR is going to be around for a really long time.
I 100% agree with you. But we're kind of at the end, so how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys and any other links you want to mention?
Sure. To check out all of our work and to say hello, you can visit our website at lightsailvr.com. It's light like a light bulb and sail like the sailboat, and VR for virtual reality. You can definitely shoot me an email. Find me on Twitter at Celia or at Matthew Celia. I'm a super collaborative person, and I really hope that you know, anybody listening who wants to get into VR, you know, feel free to shoot me an email. I think that everyone deserves to have a creative voice, and I've done a lot of work in trying to help people bring this medium up. You know, rising tide lifts all ships. So let's collab.
Perfect, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. Have a good rest of your day, man.
Cool. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.